They locked a human in with a killer predator. Then, everything went wrong for the Drakari when Marcus and Vorax returned to infiltrate the laboratory. Confronting Dr. Carrick amid flashing alarms, they freed a captive quantum entity whose energy exploded through the ship. With the cruel scientist captured and damning evidence secured, the unlikely allies had turned the hunters into the hunted. The heavy metal door slammed shut behind Marcus Vale, with a resounding clang that echoed through the cavernous chamber. The sound was final, absolute, like the closing of a tomb. Darkness enveloped him momentarily, before dim purple biolume panels flickered to life along the walls, casting an eerie glow across a sea of sand that filled the room from wall to wall. "What the hell is this?" Marcus muttered, his voice swallowed by the vastness of the chamber. His wrists still bore the raw marks where the shackles had bitten into his skin before the Drakari guards had removed them and shoved him into this arena. Just minutes ago, he'd been piloting his freighter on a routine cargo run from Titan to the mining outpost on Ceres. The next thing he knew, a massive shadow had fallen across his view screen. A Drakari research cruiser, all sleek black metal and menacing angles. Before he could even send a distress call, his ship had been snagged by a tractor beam and yanked into their hangar like a fish on a hook. The 4 reptilian guards who dragged him out had barely spoken. Their scaled faces had remained impassive, vertical pupils narrowing as they assessed their human captive. They were taller than humans by at least a foot, with powerful muscular tails that occasionally lashed behind them when they moved. The universal translator, clipped to Marcus's flight suit, had picked up fragments of their hissing conversation. Something about specimen and test subject, before they'd handed him over to a silent figure in a white coat. Now, as Marcus took a tentative step forward, his boots sank ankle-deep into the sand. The arena was circular, perhaps 50 meters across, with smooth metal walls rising 20 meters to a domed ceiling. Observation ports dotted the upper reaches, dark eyes watching him. He could feel them studying him, assessing his movements. "Listen," he called out, turning in a slow circle. "There's been a mistake. I'm just a pilot, a cargo hauler. I've got nothing of value." A metallic voice crackled from hidden speakers. "Human specimen secured. Commencing primary compatibility assessment." A heavy, mechanical grinding noise drew Marcus's attention to the far side of the arena. A section of the wall was sliding open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. Vorax containment releasing in 3, 2, 1. From the blackness emerged a creature that made Marcus's blood run cold. 6 legs, each ending in claws that gleamed like obsidian knives. A body low to the ground but powerful, covered in iridescent scales that shifted from midnight blue to deep purple as it moved. Its head was massive, dominated by jaws that could easily snap a human in half, and 4 eyes, 2 large primary ones that glowed amber in the dim light, and 2 smaller ones set higher on its skull that constantly darted around, scanning for threats. The Vorax paused at the edge of the arena, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Then those amber eyes locked onto Marcus, and a low growl rumbled through the chamber. "Oh, God," Marcus whispered, his throat suddenly dry. "You've got to be kidding me." The same mechanical voice spoke again. "Test subjects engaged, recording behavioral responses." The predator's muscles bunched, and Marcus knew what was coming next. He dove to the side just as the Vorax launched itself across the sand, its massive body sailing through the air where he had stood a second before. It landed with surprising grace, pivoting immediately to face him again. Marcus scrambled backward, his mind racing. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide in the open arena. The creature was between him and the only visible exit, the tunnel it had emerged from. Even if he could reach it, there was no guarantee it led anywhere he could survive. The Vorax circled him slowly, each step deliberate, its 4 eyes never leaving him. Marcus matched its movements, maintaining the distance between them. His heart hammered in his chest. But a lifetime of working with animals on his family's ranch back on Earth had taught him one crucial lesson. Panic was a death sentence. "Easy there," he said softly, more to steady himself than in any hope the creature would understand. "Let's just take it slow." A sudden hissing sound from the floor was his only warning, before a jet of superheated air erupted from a vent in the sand near his feet. Marcus leaped away with a yelp of pain, the heat searing through his flight suit. The Vorax used his distraction to lunge forward, forcing Marcus to roll desperately to avoid its slashing claws. More vents opened across the arena floor, creating a deadly maze of heat traps. At the same time, electrical pulses began to crackle across metal nodes that rose from the sand, filling the air with the acrid smell of ozone. "Environmental hazards activated," announced the mechanical voice. "Monitoring survival responses." The Vorax snarled as an electrical pulse caught its flank, its scales bristling in pain and anger. It redoubled its pursuit of Marcus, who was now gasping for breath as he dodged both the creature and the arena's deadly obstacles. A particularly violent burst of electricity knocked Marcus off his feet, sending him sprawling face first into the sand. He rolled onto his back just in time to see the Vorax looming over him, jaws open wide to reveal rows of serrated teeth. This is it, Marcus thought, his mind strangely calm in what he was certain were his final moments. But instead of tearing into him, the Vorax hesitated, its head tilting slightly, as if puzzled. It sniffed the air again, then took a step back, eyes still fixed on the human. Marcus seized the moment. Slowly, carefully, he raised his hands, palms outward in the universal gesture of peace. He remembered how his father had taught him to approach nervous horses. Slow movements, steady breathing, a calm tone. "That's it," he murmured. "We're both stuck here, aren't we? Both someone else's entertainment." The Vorax made a clicking sound deep in its throat, its posture shifting subtly. It was still alert, still dangerous, but the immediate threat of attack had receded. It continued to study Marcus with those intelligent amber eyes, and for the first time, Marcus saw beyond the fearsome predator to something more: curiosity, perhaps, or recognition of a fellow captive. Above them, Marcus could hear movement behind the observation ports. The Drakari were watching, recording, analyzing, and they seemed surprised by what they were seeing. Subject interaction unexpected," the mechanical voice said, a note of confusion, evident even through its artificial tone. "Proceeding to secondary test protocols." Marcus didn't like the sound of that, not one bit. The arena floor shuddered beneath them. New panels slid open, and small metallic drones rose into the air, their bodies glinting in the purple light. Each was equipped with what looked like a stinger, some kind of weapon or sampling device. Marcus couldn't be sure. The Vorax growled, its attention diverted to these new threats. One of the drones darted forward, jabbing at the creature with its stinger. The Vorax roared in pain and fury, snapping at the drone but missing as it zipped away. Another drone approached Marcus, who ducked as it swooped toward his head. "Hey!" he shouted, swatting at it ineffectually. The arena had become chaos, heat vents erupting, electrical nodes pulsing, drones attacking both human and predator indiscriminately. Marcus realized with sudden clarity that the Drakari weren't testing just him or just the Vorax. They were testing them against each other, forcing them to fight. A drone struck the Vorax's eye, causing it to thrash in agony. In its blind rage, it charged toward Marcus, who had nowhere to go in the open arena, making a split-second decision that went against every survival instinct. Marcus pulled a ration bar from his flight suit pocket, the only food he had on him, and tossed it toward the Vorax. The creature skidded to a halt, its attention caught by the unexpected offering. It sniffed at the ration bar, then delicately picked it up with the tip of a claw. To Marcus's amazement, instead of swallowing it whole, The Vorax carefully broke the bar in half. It consumed one portion. Then, after a moment's consideration, nudged the other half back toward Marcus with its nose. "Well, I'll be damned," Marcus whispered. The Vorax made that clicking sound again, but this time, it seemed almost conversational. Then it began digging in the sand with one claw, unearthing what looked like a cache of small, round objects. Seeds of some kind, Marcus realized. The creature scooped up several with its tongue, and then pushed the rest toward Marcus. "You're sharing your food," Marcus said incredulously. "You understand reciprocity." A drone dive-bombed them, interrupting the moment. The Vorax snapped it out of the air with lightning-quick reflexes, crushing the metal between its jaws before spitting out the pieces. Marcus looked up at the observation ports, knowing the Drakari scientists were watching this unexpected development with keen interest. They had thrown him in with what they thought was a mindless killer, expecting a brutal spectacle. Instead, they were witnessing the first tentative steps of an alliance. Kneeling in the sand, Marcus began to draw. Simple shapes at first: a circle, a square, a triangle. The Vorax watched intently. Then, to Marcus's astonishment, extended a claw and drew a perfect spiral next to his shapes. "You're intelligent," Marcus breathed. "Really intelligent." The Vorax made a soft trilling sound that Marcus took for agreement. It then drew what appeared to be a crude map in the sand: the arena, the tunnel it had emerged from, and another passage that Marcus hadn't noticed before. A maintenance hatch, perhaps, or an emergency exit. A way out. The drones were circling more aggressively now, the Drakari clearly displeased with how their experiment was progressing. One swooped down toward the sand drawing, apparently attempting to erase it, but the Vorax was faster. It lashed out with its tail, knocking the drone into a nearby electrical node. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks. "Test subjects exhibiting coordinated defensive behaviors," the mechanical voice announced, now sounding distinctly alarmed. "Security protocols initiating." Marcus spotted a surveillance node embedded in the wall near them. He pointed to it, then made a smashing gesture with his fist. The Vorax understood immediately. It reared up on its hind legs, reaching a height that impressed even Marcus, and smashed a powerful claw into the device. The node sparked and went dark. "We need to move fast," Marcus said, hurrying toward the area the Vorax had indicated in its sand drawing. "They're not going to let this continue much longer." The wall section looked no different from any other part of the arena. But when Marcus ran his fingers along it, he felt a slight seam. The Vorax nudged him aside and inserted a claw into the nearly invisible crack, pulling until a small maintenance hatch revealed itself. The opening was barely large enough for Marcus to squeeze through, and certainly too small for the Vorax's bulky frame. For a moment, Marcus hesitated. He could escape alone, leave the creature behind. The Vorax made a soft clicking sound and nudged him toward the opening. Its meaning was clear. "Go." "I'm not leaving you here," Marcus said firmly. He examined the hatch mechanism and realized it was controlled by a simple locking system. If he could override it, he might be able to open it wider. Using a broken shard from the destroyed drone, Marcus pried open the control panel beside the hatch. Years of maintaining his own freighter had given him a decent understanding of basic ship systems, and Drakari technology, while advanced, followed similar principles. "Security breach detected," the mechanical voice blared. "Containment failure imminent. Security teams dispatched." Marcus's fingers worked frantically with the wiring. "Come on, come on!" With a satisfying click, the entire wall panel slid open, revealing a maintenance corridor beyond. It was tight, but large enough for both of them if the Vorax crouched low. "Let's go," Marcus urged, ducking into the corridor. The Vorax followed, its powerful body barely squeezing through the opening. They had barely made it 10 meters when alarms began to shriek throughout the ship. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor ahead, and Marcus could hear the pounding of approaching footsteps. "They're coming," he whispered unnecessarily. The Vorax was already alert, its body tense and ready. The corridor branched ahead of them. Left would take them deeper into the ship, right toward what Marcus hoped was the outer hull, and possibly access to the hangar where his ship was docked. If they could reach it. A squad of Drakari guards appeared at the junction, their scaled faces registering shock at the sight of the escaped test subjects. They raised their weapons, sleek energy rifles that hummed with power. "Halt or be terminated!" one of them hissed in heavily accented standard. The Vorax roared, the sound deafening in the confined space. It charged forward with unexpected speed, scattering the guards before they could fire. Marcus sprinted after it, ducking as energy bolts sizzled past his head. They rounded a corner to find a sealed door blocking their path. Marcus spotted a control panel similar to the one he'd hacked in the arena. "Cover me!" he shouted to the Vorax, who took up a defensive position, facing back the way they had come. More guards appeared, firing wildly. The Vorax used its powerful tail to smash one into the wall and its claws to disarm another. But they were outnumbered, and soon more would arrive. Marcus's fingers flew over the control panel, bypassing security protocols and rerouting power. The door slid open with a hiss, just as a new squad of guards appeared from a side passage. "This way!" Marcus called. They dashed through the doorway, and Marcus immediately locked it behind them. But the Drakari would override it quickly. They needed to keep moving. The new corridor was wider, clearly a main passageway. Signs in the Drakari script lined the walls, incomprehensible to Marcus. But one symbol he recognized, the universal icon for a ship's hangar. "That way," he pointed, and the Vorax seemed to understand, loping alongside him as they raced down the corridor. They encountered more resistance, guards, security drones, and automated defense systems. Each time, the unlikely pair worked in tandem, Marcus hacking control panels to seal pursuers behind them, or disable security measures. The Vorax providing raw power and ferocity when brute force was needed. At last, they reached a massive set of reinforced doors that Marcus knew must lead to the hangar. But these were no ordinary doors. They were blast doors, designed to withstand explosive decompression. The control panel here was more sophisticated, protected by multiple layers of encryption. "I can't hack this," Marcus admitted after a frantic attempt. "It would take hours, and we've got minutes at best." The Vorax studied the doors for a moment, then placed its claws in the slight seam between them. Its powerful muscles bulged as it strained against the unyielding metal. "It's no use," Marcus started to say, but stopped as he heard the metal begin to groan. Incredibly, the doors were bending outward, the seam widening under the Vorax's tremendous strength. With a final roar of effort, the Vorax tore a gap large enough for them to squeeze through. Marcus went first, then helped guide the larger creature through the bent metal. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the vast hangar bay. Below them sat Marcus's small freighter, surrounded by Drakari patrol cruisers and shuttles. Guards swarmed the area, and at the center of the activity stood a tall Drakari in a white coat, clearly the scientist in charge of the experiment. "That's my ship," Marcus whispered, pointing. "If we can reach it." The Vorax made a soft clicking sound of acknowledgement. It gestured toward a maintenance ladder that led down to the hangar floor, then to a control station near the bay doors. Marcus understood the plan immediately. "You create a diversion. I'll get to the ship and power it up. Then I'll pick you up, and we make a run for the bay doors." The Vorax trilled agreement, then, without warning, launched itself from the balcony with a bone-chilling roar. It landed in the midst of the Drakari guards, scattering them in panic. The scientist in the white coat stumbled backward, shouting orders that were lost in the chaos. Marcus used the distraction to scramble down the ladder and dash toward his freighter. Energy bolts crisscrossed the hangar, some coming perilously close, as guards tried to target both escaping subjects at once. Reaching his ship, Marcus slammed his palm against the biometric lock. The hatch opened, and he dove inside, racing to the cockpit. His fingers danced across the familiar controls, bypassing the standard startup sequence for an emergency power-up. "Come on, old girl," he muttered as the engines reluctantly rumbled to life. The ship rose a few meters off the hangar floor, stabilizers whining in protest at the rapid ascent. Through the view screen, Marcus could see the Vorax fighting its way toward him, a whirlwind of claws, teeth, and tail. It had acquired a weapon from one of the guards and was using it with surprising proficiency, firing precise shots at control panels and equipment rather than at the Drakari themselves. Marcus swung the freighter around, bringing it low over the hangar floor. He opened the cargo bay doors and shouted over the external speakers, "Jump!" The Vorax made an impossible leap, sailing through the air to land with a heavy thud in the cargo bay. Marcus immediately closed the doors and pulled up sharply, the ship's nose pointing toward the still-closed hangar bay doors. "Hold on back there," he called over the internal comm. "This is going to be rough." He targeted the bay door controls with the freighter's modest weapon system, not designed for combat, but for clearing space debris. The control panel exploded in a shower of sparks, and the massive doors began to slide open, responding to the emergency override. But they were opening too slowly. Behind them, Drakari patrol cruisers were powering up, preparing to give chase. The scientist in the white coat was gesturing frantically, his scaled face contorted with rage. "No time to be gentle," Marcus muttered, ramming the throttle forward. The freighter shot toward the partially open doors, scraping along the sides with a horrific screech of metal on metal. Warning lights flashed across the console as the ship's hull integrity was compromised. They burst into open space, the vast blackness, a welcome sight after the confines of the Drakari vessel. But their freedom was short-lived. The radar showed multiple contacts launching from the research cruiser, pursuit craft, faster and better armed than Marcus's humble freighter. "We can't outrun them," Marcus said grimly. He felt, rather than heard, the Vorax enter the cockpit behind him. The creature squeezed its bulk into the co-pilot seat, its amber eyes fixed on the approaching Drakari ships. It made a series of clicks and growls, then pointed a claw at the communications array. "You want me to send a message?" Marcus asked incredulously. "To whom?" The Vorax reached over with surprising dexterity and input a sequence into the comm system. A series of coordinates appeared on the screen, along with a coded signal format that Marcus didn't recognize. "I don't know what this is," he admitted. "But at this point, I'm willing to try anything." He activated the signal, broadcasting on all frequencies. The Vorax settled back in its seat, its posture suggesting satisfaction. The first energy blast from a Drakari pursuit craft rocked the freighter, sending it into a wild spin that Marcus struggled to control. The ship's shields were minimal, designed to deflect small debris, not weapons fire. They wouldn't survive another direct hit. Marcus executed a desperate evasive maneuver, diving beneath the plane of attack and cutting the engines momentarily to drift silently before reactivating them in an unexpected vector. It was a trick he'd learned smuggling supplies to outlying colonies during the corporate wars, and it bought them precious seconds. "Whatever help you've called," he said to the Vorax, "I hope they hurry." As if in answer, the radar pinged with new contacts. Two sleek vessels had appeared at the edge of sensor range, moving fast, too fast to be more Drakari ships. Their design was unfamiliar to Marcus, all smooth curves and gleaming metal that seemed to shift colors as they moved, like the Vorax's scales. The newcomers accelerated toward the Drakari pursuit craft, weapons blazing. Their attack was coordinated and devastating. Two Drakari ships exploded immediately, while the others scattered in confusion. "Friends of yours?" Marcus asked, a smile spreading across his face despite their dire situation. The Vorax trilled affirmatively, watching the battle with evident satisfaction. The comm system crackled to life. A voice speaking in a language Marcus didn't understand. A series of clicks, trills, and deep, resonant tones similar to those the Vorax had been making. The creature responded in kind, the exchange continuing for several moments before the comm switched to standard. Human vessel. This is Commander Kurvesh of the Sarathi Defense Force. Our mutual friend suggests you follow us to safety. The Drakari will send reinforcements. Copy that, Commander, Marcus replied, relief flooding through him. Lead the way. One of the sleek ships pulled alongside the freighter, while the other continued to engage the remaining Drakari vessels. Marcus followed his escort, pushing his damaged ship to its limits as they put distance between themselves and the research cruiser. So, Marcus said, glancing at the Vorax beside him, you're not just any predator, are you? You're a Sarathi. The creature, the Sarathi, made a sound that Marcus could have sworn was laughter. It tapped a claw against its chest and vocalized a complex series of sounds that must have been its name. I can't pronounce that, Marcus admitted. Mind if I still call you Vorax? That's what the Drakari called you. The Sarathi shrugged, a surprisingly human gesture that made Marcus smile. I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Vale. He extended his hand without thinking, then wondered if the gesture would be understood. To his surprise, the Sarathi extended a claw and gently clasped his hand, mimicking the human handshake with careful precision. Their moment of formal introduction was interrupted by a warning beep from the console. The ship's hull integrity was failing in multiple sections, and life support was operating at minimal capacity. They wouldn't make it far in this condition. Commander Kurvesh, Marcus called over the comm. My ship's taken heavy damage. We need to dock somewhere for repairs. And soon. Understood, human vessel. The UES Harbinger is on an intercept course. They will provide assistance. Marcus's eyebrows shot up in surprise. The United Earthship Harbinger? What's a human destroyer doing out here? We have an arrangement with your military, Commander Kurvesh replied cryptically. The Sarathi and humans share common interests regarding the Drakari Empire. Within minutes, a massive ship appeared on their sensors, the UES Harbinger, a Valiant-class destroyer that dwarfed Marcus's freighter. Its imposing silhouette was a welcome sight, the blue and silver Earth insignia gleaming on its hull. Under the destroyer's protection, they docked in one of its cavernous hangar bays. As the atmosphere equalized and the all-clear sounded, Marcus powered down his battered ship and turned to the Sarathi beside him. Well, Vorax, it looks like we made it, thanks to you. The Sarathi trilled softly, placing a claw gently on Marcus's shoulder in what seemed like a gesture of camaraderie. The freighter's hatch opened to reveal a welcoming committee, a squad of human marines in full battle armor, weapons at the ready, and a tall woman with silver-streaked black hair and the insignia of an admiral on her uniform. Admiral Lana Reyes, she introduced herself as Marcus descended the ramp. And you must be the pilot who caused quite a stir in Drakari space. Marcus Vale, ma'am. Just a cargo hauler who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He gestured behind him. And this is, well, the Drakari called it a Vorax, but it's actually a Sarathi. The Marines tensed as the Sarathi emerged from the ship, their weapons tracking its movement. But Admiral Reyes held up a hand, signaling them to stand down. At ease, she ordered. Commander Kurvesh informed us of the situation. She addressed the Sarathi directly. On behalf of United Earth, I welcome you aboard the Harbinger. The Sarathi made a formal gesture that Reyes seemed to recognize, inclining its head in acknowledgement. We have translation technology that might help with communication, Reyes said, motioning to an officer who stepped forward with a small device. With your permission. The Sarathi allowed the device to be attached to a collar-like structure around its neck. After a moment of calibration, it spoke. Its clicks and trills transformed into accented, but understandable standard. I am Kirzanavesh of the Sarathi Collective. He said. I was captured by the Drakari 3 cycles ago during a scientific expedition to study migration patterns of void whales near their territory. They've been experimenting on him, Marcus explained, anger evident in his voice. On both of us. They threw us in an arena together, expected us to fight to the death for their entertainment, or research, or whatever twisted purpose they had. Admiral Reyes's expression hardened. We've suspected the Drakari of conducting illegal biological weapons research, but this is the first concrete evidence we've had. Mr. Vale, I'd like a full debriefing on everything you saw aboard their vessel. Of course, Marcus agreed. But first, I want to know how a human destroyer happened to be in position to rescue us. That's a hell of a coincidence. Not a coincidence at all, Reyes said with a tight smile. We've been working with the Sarathi for months, sharing intelligence on Drakari movements. When Commander Kirvesh received the distress signal with Kirzanavesh's personal code, we were already in the sector, conducting joint exercises. The timing was fortunate, Kirzanavesh added through the translator. I had almost lost hope of rescue, until Marcus. Marcus felt a flush of embarrassment at the credit. We helped each other. I wouldn't have made it out without you. Admiral Reyes led them from the hangar to a conference room where a medical team was waiting. As they walked, Marcus couldn't help but notice the stares they received. A human and a Sarathi walking side by side. Neither captor nor captive, but equals. The doctor will examine you both for injuries, Reyes explained, gesturing to a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a worried expression. Dr. Patel is our chief medical officer. I'm fine, Marcus insisted, though now that the adrenaline was wearing off, he was becoming aware of numerous cuts, burns, and bruises from their escape. Protocol, Dr. Patel said firmly. Please, sit. As the doctor examined him, Marcus recounted everything that had happened from the moment his ship was captured. Admiral Reyes listened intently, occasionally asking for clarification on specific details about the Drakari vessel, its defenses, and the experiments. They had other test subjects. Kirzanavesh interjected at one point. Not just Sarathi. I saw Novali, Teridians, even what I believe were quantum entities in containment fields, all being studied, experimented upon. For what purpose? Reyes asked. Bioweapons, Marcus suggested. Or maybe they're trying to create some kind of super soldiers by studying different species' abilities. Both, Kirzanavesh said grimly. And more. The Drakari believe in the superiority of their species, above all others. They see the rest of us as resources to be exploited, studied, and ultimately controlled or eliminated. The scientist in charge, Marcus added. He seemed particularly interested in how Kirzanavesh, and I interacted, when we cooperated instead of fighting. He was, I don't know, both angry and fascinated. That would be Dr. Carrick, Kirzanavesh said, a growl entering his voice despite the translator's even tones. Chief xenobiologist of the Drakari Science Ministry. He is known among my people for his cruelty and his creativity in designing torments. Admiral Reyes's expression was grave. This information aligns with intelligence we've gathered from other sources. The Drakari have been expanding their territory aggressively, subjugating or displacing other species they encounter. We've been trying to build a coalition to counter their expansion, but many races are hesitant to provoke them directly. Well, they've provoked us, Marcus said firmly. Kidnapping a human citizen, performing experiments. That's an act of war by any definition. It's not that simple, Reyes sighed. The Drakari Empire is powerful, with technology that in some areas surpasses our own. We can't afford an all-out conflict. Not yet. What we need is evidence, proof of their violations of interstellar law that we can present to the Galactic Council. Evidence like first-hand testimony from two of their test subjects? Marcus suggested. Exactly like that, Reyes confirmed with a nod. Mr. Vale, Kirzanovesh, would you be willing to testify before the council? Absolutely, Marcus said without hesitation. Kirzanovesh clicked thoughtfully before responding. I will speak for all those still held captive, but words alone will not free them. We must take action. One step at a time, Reyes cautioned. First, we document everything, build our case. Then we can discuss rescue operations. The discussion continued late into the ship's night cycle, with Marcus and Kirzanovesh providing every detail they could remember about the Drakari vessel, its systems, and the experiments they had witnessed. Officers came and went, bringing reports, asking questions, and coordinating with the Sarathi ships that continued to escort the Harbinger. Finally, exhaustion overtook them. Admiral Reyes ordered quarters prepared for both Marcus and Kirzanovesh, the latter requiring some hasty modifications to accommodate his unique physiology. As they were about to part ways for the night, Kirzanovesh placed a claw gently on Marcus's arm. Among my people, he said through the translator, those who face death together and survive are considered kin-bonded. You are now Kir Marcusvesh, should you accept the honor. Marcus was touched by the gesture. I accept, he said solemnly, though I don't think I can pronounce your full name any better than before. The Sarathi made the sound that Marcus now recognized as laughter. Vorax will suffice among friends. In his assigned quarters, Marcus sank onto the bed, his body finally registering the full extent of his ordeal. But despite his exhaustion, his mind was racing. Just days ago, he had been a simple cargo pilot, concerned only with delivery schedules and maintenance costs. Now he was at the center of an interstellar diplomatic incident, kin-bonded to an alien predator, and potentially on the verge of war with the Drakari Empire. Life had certainly taken an unexpected turn. The next morning, or what passed for morning on a starship's artificial day cycle, Marcus was summoned to Admiral Reyes's private office. To his surprise, Kirzanovesh was already there, along with Commander Kirvesh, whose physical resemblance to Kirzanovesh marked them as belonging to the same species. Though the commander's scales were a deeper blue, and he wore what appeared to be a uniform of some kind. Mr. Vale, Reyes greeted him. We've been discussing next steps. The Harbinger is en route to Proxima Station, where representatives from the Galactic Council will hear your testimony. How long until we arrive? Marcus asked, accepting the cup of coffee an aide offered him. 3 days at current speed, Reyes replied. We're taking a circuitous route to avoid Drakari patrols. They'll be looking for you both. They'll do more than look, Commander Kirvesh said grimly. Our intelligence suggests they've dispatched a hunter-killer group specifically to recapture you and eliminate witnesses. Great, Marcus muttered. So I'm a fugitive now. You're under the protection of both United Earth and the Sarathi Collective, Reyes assured him. But yes, it would be wise to consider yourself a target for the foreseeable future. What about my ship, my cargo, my livelihood? Your ship is being repaired as we speak, Reyes said. As for your cargo, I've authorized compensation for any losses. And regarding your livelihood, well, that depends on you, Mr. Vale. What do you mean? Admiral Reyes leaned forward, her expression serious. Your experience, your first-hand knowledge of Drakari methods and technology is invaluable. More than that, you've demonstrated remarkable adaptability and resourcefulness, the kind of qualities we look for in our operations personnel. Are you offering me a job? Marcus asked, surprised. I'm offering you a purpose, Reyes corrected. A chance to be part of something larger than cargo runs. The coalition we're building needs people who understand the stakes, who've seen the enemy up close. Marcus glanced at Kirzanovesh, who had been quietly observing the exchange. What about you? What will you do after testifying? I will continue what I started before my capture. the Sarathi replied. I am a xenobiologist, like Dr. Carrick, but my work seeks understanding, not exploitation. I study other species to find common ground, not weaknesses to exploit. A noble pursuit, Marcus acknowledged, and one the galaxy could use more of right now. Indeed, Commander Kirvesh agreed. Which is why we are proposing a joint mission. After your testimony at Proxima Station, we want to send a small team back to the Drakari research vessel to gather more concrete evidence and, if possible, to free the other test subjects. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. You want to go back, voluntarily? Not just go back, Reyes clarified. Infiltrate, document, extract. A surgical operation with a small team of specialists, including, if you're willing, you and Kurzanovesh as guides. You know the layout, Commander Kirvesh added. You've seen their security measures, their protocols, information that would take us months to gather otherwise. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed by the proposition. I'm just a pilot, he protested weakly. Not a soldier, not a spy. You survived in an environment designed to kill you, Reyes pointed out. You formed an alliance with a being the Drakari assumed was a mindless predator. You escaped from a maximum security research vessel. Those aren't the actions of just a pilot. Marcus looked at Kurzanovesh, seeking his perspective. I would welcome your presence, kin brother, the Sarathi said simply. But the choice must be yours. You have already done more than could be asked of any being. The decision should have been difficult. Logic dictated that Marcus take the compensation, get his ship repaired, and return to the relative safety of human space. Find a new shipping route far from Drakari territory. But when he searched his feelings, he found the choice was already made. When do we start planning? He asked. The relief and approval on Admiral Reyes's face was evident. Immediately. Commander Kirvesh has already begun assembling a team from his Special Operations Unit. I'll assign our best covert operatives to work with them. For the next 3 days, as the Harbinger made its way to Proxima Station, Marcus and Kurzanovesh worked closely with the joint human Sarathi team. They created detailed maps of the Drakari vessel from memory, identified potential entry points and security vulnerabilities, and developed contingency plans for various scenarios. Marcus discovered that his years of navigating the complexities of interstellar shipping, dealing with corrupt officials, avoiding pirates, and finding the most efficient routes, had given him skills that translated surprisingly well to covert operations planning. He had an eye for logistics and a knack for identifying the path of least resistance. Kurzanovesh, meanwhile, provided invaluable insights into Drakari psychology and biology. As a xenobiologist, he understood their sensory capabilities, their thought patterns, even the limitations of their physical forms. Their infrared vision is superior to their standard sight, he explained during one planning session. But they have a blind spot in the ultraviolet spectrum. Their ancestors evolved as ambush predators in dense jungle environments, not open spaces. So if we can generate a UV light source, we could effectively be invisible to them? Asked Lieutenant Commander Sophia Chen, the human team leader. Not invisible, Kurzanovesh clarified, but difficult to track. Yes. Their brains simply don't process that information efficiently. The team dynamics were fascinating to Marcus. Humans and Sarathi, two species that had known of each other's existence for less than a decade, working together with increasing comfort and trust. It was a stark contrast to the Drakari worldview, which saw other species only as resources or threats. On the evening before their arrival at Proxima Station, Admiral Reyes hosted a small dinner in her private mess for the mission leaders. The atmosphere was subdued but determined, each being lost in their own thoughts about the challenges ahead. Tell me, Mr. Vale, Reyes said as they finished their meal. What was your first thought when you realized you were trapped in an arena with a predator? Marcus considered the question, then answered honestly, Terror, obviously, but also confusion. It seemed so pointless. What could anyone possibly learn from such a scenario? Control, Kirzanovesh said quietly. The Drakari are obsessed with it. Controlling other species, controlling environments, controlling outcomes. They believe that by understanding how different species react under extreme stress, they can better predict and manipulate our behaviors on a larger scale. And yet, Commander Kirvesh added, they failed to predict the outcome of their own experiment. They expected violence, got cooperation instead. That's their fundamental flaw, Marcus realized. They see only what they expect to see. They put us in that arena, assuming certain behaviors, based on their preconceptions. When we defied those expectations, they didn't adapt. They tried to force the outcome they wanted by adding new pressures. Admiral Reyes nodded thoughtfully. A weakness we can exploit. They'll be expecting a frontal assault, a show of force. They won't anticipate a small infiltration team using their own prejudices against them. Exactly, Marcus agreed. They think in terms of domination, not collaboration. It blinds them to possibilities. The conversation continued, shifting from philosophy to practical matters. But Marcus found himself dwelling on that insight. The Drakari's greatest weakness wasn't technological or physical. It was conceptual. They simply couldn't imagine a universe where cooperation trumped competition, where different species could achieve more together than in conflict. It was a weakness his unlikely alliance with Kirzanovesh had exposed, and one that might just give them the edge they needed in the coming mission. Proxima Station loomed large in the view screen as the Harbinger approached. A massive construct of interconnected rings and spires. It served as neutral territory for diplomatic engagements between the various spacefaring species of the sector. Its central dome housed the regional offices of the Galactic Council, where representatives from dozens of worlds gathered to resolve disputes and coordinate responses to shared threats. Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching as the station grew larger. Kirzanovesh joined him, his scaled form reflecting the stars outside. Nervous, Marcus asked. Concerned, the Sarathi replied. Words are not my natural weapon. I fear I will not do justice to the suffering I witnessed. Just tell the truth, Marcus advised. That's all anyone can ask. And if the truth is not enough, if the Council chooses inaction over intervention, it was a valid concern. The Galactic Council was notoriously cautious, prioritizing stability over justice in many cases. The Drakari held considerable influence with certain Council members, and they would undoubtedly attempt to discredit any testimony against them. Then we proceed with the mission as planned, Marcus said firmly, with or without official sanction. Admiral Reyes approached, her formal uniform impeccable. It's time, she said simply. The Council is assembled and waiting. The Council chamber was impressive, a vast circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central speaking platform. Representatives from at least 20 different species occupied the seats, their diverse forms a testament to the variety of life in the galaxy. Some were vaguely humanoid, others utterly alien in appearance. All watched with keen interest as Marcus and Kirzanovesh took their places on the platform. The Drakari delegation was present as well, their sleek, scaled forms adorned with elaborate decorations signifying their rank and lineage. Their leader, Ambassador Skrath, regarded the proceedings with apparent disdain, his vertical pupils narrowing as he focused on the two witnesses. The Council speaker, a tall, willowy being with luminescent skin, called the session to order. We are gathered to hear testimony regarding alleged violations of the Sentient Rights Accord by the Drakari Empire. The witnesses will present their evidence, after which the Drakari delegation will have an opportunity to respond. No interruptions will be permitted during testimony. Marcus went first, recounting in detail his capture, imprisonment, and the experiments conducted upon him. He described the arena, the environmental hazards, the clear intent to force combat between him and what the Drakari had designated as the Vorax. He spoke of the other test subjects he had glimpsed, the casual cruelty of the scientists, and the systematic nature of the operation. Kirzanovesh followed, his testimony more comprehensive and devastating. As a scientist himself, he understood exactly what the Drakari had been attempting to achieve with their experiments. He described 3 cycles of captivity, dozens of different tests, and the gradual realization that the Drakari were developing biological weapons specifically designed to target the unique physiologies of various species. They sought not merely to understand us, he concluded, but to perfect the means of our destruction. Species-specific pathogens, toxins that affect only certain neural structures, genetic modifications that could render entire populations sterile. These are not the actions of a civilization seeking peaceful coexistence, but of one preparing for galactic domination. Throughout both testimonies, the Drakari delegation remained impassive, though Marcus noticed Ambassador Siskrath occasionally making notes on a datapad. When it was finally his turn to respond, the ambassador rose with fluid grace and approached the speaking platform. "Esteemed representatives," he began, his voice smooth and cultured. "The Drakari Empire categorically denies these outlandish accusations. What you have heard are the fevered imaginings of a traumatized human pilot and the calculated lies of a Sarathi operative." He turned to face Marcus directly. "Mr. Vale claims he was abducted from neutral space, yet our records show his vessel violated Drakari territory, ignored warnings to change course, and fired upon a science vessel conducting legitimate research. He was detained according to our laws, treated humanely, and was in the process of being escorted to a border station for release when he escaped, causing significant damage and injuring numerous security personnel." The ambassador then addressed Kirzanovesh's testimony. "As for these fantastical claims of biological weapons research, where is the evidence? Where are the samples, the data, the documented protocols? All you have presented is anecdotal testimony from 2 individuals with clear anti-Drakari bias." He spread his hands in a gesture of openness. "The Drakari Empire is committed to peaceful scientific advancement. Yes, we conduct research on various species, as do all spacefaring civilizations. But our work complies fully with the Sentient Rights Accord, using only volunteer genetic samples and simulation models, never live subjects. The performance was masterful, reasonable, measured, projecting both innocence and subtle indignation at being falsely accused." Marcus could see several council representatives nodding in agreement. "If the council wishes," Ambassador Skrath continued, "we would welcome a formal inspection of our research facilities by a neutral delegation. We have nothing to hide. It was a clever move. Such an inspection would take months to organize, by which time any incriminating evidence could be hidden or destroyed. And the facilities shown to inspectors would undoubtedly be carefully sanitized decoys, not the actual research vessels where the experiments took place." The council speaker called for questions from the representatives. For the next several hours, Marcus and Kirzanovesh were grilled on every aspect of their experience, their accounts scrutinized for inconsistencies or exaggerations. The Drakari delegation interjected frequently, offering alternative explanations or challenging specific details. By the time the session concluded, Marcus was exhausted and disheartened. Despite their compelling testimony, it was clear that without physical evidence, many council members remained skeptical. The speaker announced that the council would deliberate and issue a decision within 3 days. "That could have gone better," Marcus muttered as they left the chamber, flanked by security personnel assigned to protect them during their stay on the station. "It went exactly as expected," Admiral Reyes replied, her expression grim. "The Drakari are masters of diplomatic maneuvering. They've been playing this game for centuries." "Then why bother with the testimony at all?" Marcus asked, frustration evident in his voice. "Because now everything is on record, Reyes explained. When we bring back hard evidence from our mission, it will corroborate your testimony and force the council to act. If we bring back evidence, Kirzanovesh corrected, and if we survive to present it. The Sarathi's pragmatism was sobering. The infiltration mission, already dangerous, now seemed even more critical. Without it, the Drakari would continue their experiments unchecked, developing weapons that could threaten entire species. We need to accelerate our timeline, Commander Kirvesh said, as they reached the secure quarters assigned to them. The Drakari will be expecting some form of response. They'll increase security at their research facilities, possibly even relocate their most sensitive projects. Agreed, Reyes nodded. How soon can your team be ready? 12 hours, the commander replied without hesitation. The equipment is prepared, and my operatives are standing by. My people will be ready as well, Reyes confirmed. Mr. Vale, Kirzanovesh, this is your last opportunity to reconsider. Once we launch this operation, there's no turning back. Marcus exchanged a look with Kirzanovesh, a moment of silent communication that transcended their biological differences. They had come too far, seen too much, to walk away now. We're in, Marcus answered for both of them. The mission briefing was conducted in a secure compartment aboard the Sarathi vessel Shadow Dancer, a sleek stealth ship designed for covert operations. The joint team consisted of 4 Sarathi operatives, 3 human specialists, and Marcus and Kirzanovesh as guides. Lieutenant Commander Chen outlined the plan, her precise movements highlighting key points on the holographic display of the Drakari research cruiser. Our primary objective is documentation, solid, irrefutable evidence of sentient rights violations. Secondary objective is the liberation of any test subjects still held captive. Tertiary objective is the identification of key Drakari personnel involved in the program. She gestured to a specific section of the ship's schematic. We'll approach in a captured Drakari shuttle, using security codes provided by intelligence. Initial insertion will be through this maintenance airlock, which should bypass primary security checkpoints. Once aboard, Commander Kirvesh continued, we split into 3 teams. Alpha Team, led by myself and Lieutenant Commander Chen, will access the main research database and copy all files related to the experimentation program. Beta Team, led by Operative Torsek, will place surveillance devices in key locations to continue gathering intelligence after our departure. Gamma Team, led by Kirzanovesh and Mr. Vale, will locate and evaluate the status of any remaining test subjects, determining if extraction is feasible. Marcus studied the assigned route for Gamma Team. It would take them back through the areas he knew best, the testing chambers, the holding cells, the observation post where Drakari scientists had watched their cruel experiments with clinical detachment. Each team will have 90 minutes to complete their objectives before returning to the extraction point. Chen concluded. Communication will be limited to prevent detection, so synchronize your chronometers and stick to the timeline. Questions? What if we encounter Dr. Carrick or other high-value targets? Asked one of the human operatives, a woman whose insignia identified her as a Special Forces operative. Capture if possible, avoid if not. Commander Kirvesh replied firmly. This is not an assassination mission. We need them alive to stand trial. And if extraction of test subjects is deemed feasible? Marcus asked, thinking of the other beings he had glimpsed during his captivity. Use your judgment, Chen said. Priority goes to those in immediate danger, or those whose testimony would be most valuable. We have limited space on the shuttle and limited time. Make every decision count. The briefing continued with detailed discussions of equipment, contingency plans, and emergency protocols. Marcus absorbed it all, surprised at how quickly he was adapting to this new role. The skills that had kept him alive as an independent freighter pilot, quick thinking, spatial awareness, improvisation, were serving him well in this military context. 6 hours later, the team was aboard the captured Drakari shuttle, approaching the research cruiser through a debris field that helped mask their signature. Marcus sat beside Kurzanovesh, both dressed in adaptive camouflage suits that would help them blend into the ship's environment. "How does it feel?" Marcus asked quietly. "Going back to the place where you were imprisoned?" Kurzanovesh considered the question. "Among my people, there is a ritual of confronting one's greatest fear. We call it the returning. This feels like that, a necessary step in healing." "I hope we find what we're looking for," Marcus said, "for all our sakes." The shuttle's comms crackled as they established contact with the cruiser. Commander Kurvesh, speaking perfect Drakari, thanks to intensive language training, requested docking clearance using the stolen security codes. There was a tense moment of silence before the cruiser responded, granting permission. "They suspect nothing," Kurvesh reported, his voice carefully neutral. "Docking in 5 minutes. Final equipment check." Marcus verified his gear: stunner, data collection device, medical scanner, emergency beacon. Everything he would need to document conditions and assess the viability of rescuing any remaining captives. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud, magnetic clamps securing it to the cruiser's hull. Instead of using the main airlock, which would lead to the hangar bay, where security would be waiting, the team accessed an external maintenance hatch. One by one, they entered the cruiser through the narrow passage, emerging into a dimly lit service corridor. "Alpha Team, proceed to Deck 4, Section 12, Lieutenant Commander Chen whispered. "Beta Team, fan out through Decks 2 and 3. Gamma Team, the detention areas are 2 levels down. Good hunting." Marcus and Kurzanovesh, accompanied by a human medic named Torres, made their way carefully through the ship's labyrinthine passages. Using the knowledge gained during their escape, they avoided main corridors and security checkpoints, instead utilizing maintenance tunnels and service shafts. The detention level was eerily quiet when they reached it. The purple biolume panels cast the same ghostly light, Marcus remembered. But something felt different. "It's too empty," he whispered. "Where are the guards? The scientists?" Kurzanovesh's nostrils flared as he scented the air. "Recent activity," he confirmed. "Many beings passed through here not long ago. But where did they go?" They approached the first testing arena, similar to the one where Marcus and Kurzanovesh had been forced to confront each other. The observation ports were dark, the sand below undisturbed, no sign of recent use. Moving on, they checked holding cell after holding cell, all empty, though some showed signs of hasty evacuation, discarded restraints, spilled nutrient paste, diagnostic equipment left running. "They've moved the subjects," Torres said, stating the obvious. "But why and where?" Kurzanovesh accessed a nearby terminal, his claws dancing across the interface with surprising dexterity. "Transport logs," he announced after a moment. 47 test subjects transferred to another vessel 12 hours ago. Destination: classified. "After our testimony," Marcus realized, "they're covering their tracks." "Not completely," Kurzanovesh corrected, continuing to scan the terminal. "They left in haste. Some data remains." He connected a device to the terminal, copying what information he could find. A sudden alert from Torres's scanner interrupted them. "Movement ahead," she warned. "Multiple signatures approaching this section." They ducked into an adjacent laboratory as a group of Drakari passed by. 4 guards escorting a figure in a white coat that Marcus recognized immediately. "Dr. Carrick," he breathed, anger surging through him at the sight of the scientist who had orchestrated their suffering. Kurzanovesh placed a restraining claw on Marcus's arm. "Not now," he cautioned. "Follow them. They may lead us to what we seek." Keeping a safe distance, they trailed Dr. Carrick and his escort through the detention level to a secure door that required both biometric and code authentication. Once the group had passed through, Marcus approached the door cautiously. "Can you get us in?" he asked Torres, who was examining the security panel. "Not without triggering alarms," she replied after a moment. "This is military-grade encryption. Not standard research security. Kurzanovesh studied the door, then the ventilation shaft above it. There, he pointed. An alternative route. Marcus assessed the shaft. It would be a tight fit for him. Even tighter for Kurzanovesh, but possible. Torres, the smallest of the three, could navigate it easily. Let's do it, he decided. They removed the vent cover and hoisted themselves up one by one. The shaft was claustrophobic, forcing them to crawl on their bellies through accumulated dust and debris. But it served its purpose, leading them to an opening above what appeared to be a secure inner laboratory. Below them, Dr. Carrick was addressing his guards while activating various equipment. Marcus couldn't understand the Drakari language, but Kurzanovesh translated in whispers. He's saying that despite the evacuation order, he refused to abandon his most promising project. He's preparing to continue his work on what he calls the culmination of years of research. What project? Marcus wondered aloud. His question was answered as Carrick operated a control panel, causing a section of the floor to retract. From below rose a large cylindrical tank filled with a viscous amber fluid. Floating within it was a being unlike any Marcus had ever seen. A swirling mass of luminescent particles that occasionally coalesced into vaguely humanoid shapes before dissolving again. A quantum entity. Kurzanovesh breathed, awe and horror mingling in his voice. One of the rarest sentient species in the galaxy. They exist partially in our dimension and partially in others, perceiving reality in ways we cannot comprehend. What's he doing to it? Torres asked, her medical scanner recording everything. Attempting to weaponize its unique properties. Kurzanovesh replied grimly. Quantum entities can phase between dimensions, potentially bypassing any physical barrier. If the Drakari could control such abilities, they could infiltrate any secure facility, assassinate any target, steal any technology. Marcus concluded, understanding the implications immediately. No wonder Carrick wouldn't abandon this research. They watched as the scientist injected various compounds into the tank, monitoring the entity's reactions on a series of displays. The being's luminescence flickered erratically, patterns of light suggesting distress or pain. We need to stop this, Marcus decided, not just document it. Agreed, Kurzanovesh said. But how? 4 armed guards, plus Carrick himself. Marcus assessed the laboratory, noting the positions of the guards, the location of emergency systems, the various equipment. A plan began to form. Torres, can you trigger a containment breach alarm without actually causing a breach? He asked. The medic nodded. I can spoof the sensor readings from here. It would appear as if the tank is failing, triggering emergency protocols. Do it, Marcus instructed. When the guards react, Kurzanovesh and I will drop down and secure Carrick. He's our priority, both for the intelligence he possesses and as evidence of Drakari culpability. Torres manipulated her scanner, sending false readings to the laboratory's security system. Almost immediately, alarms began to blare, and red warning lights flashed throughout the room. The guards looked to Carrick for instructions, momentarily distracted. Marcus and Kurzanovesh crashed through the ventilation shaft's cover, landing in the midst of the confusion. Kurzanovesh's powerful tail swept 2 guards off their feet, while Marcus tackled a third. The 4th guard raised his weapon, but Torres, now emerging from the shaft as well, fired her stunner with expert precision, dropping him where he stood. Dr. Carrick, realizing what was happening, lunged for a control panel, likely an additional alarm or perhaps a self-destruct sequence. Marcus intercepted him, grappling with the scientist who, despite his academic appearance, possessed the natural strength of all Drakari. You! Carrick hissed, recognizing Marcus. The human test subject? How dare you interfere with my work? Your work? Marcus grunted, struggling to restrain the scientist. You mean your crimes against sentient beings? Kurzanovesh appeared beside them, having neutralized the remaining guards. He fixed Carrick with a cold stare that made the scientist flinch despite his bluster. Dr. Carrick, You are now a prisoner of the Sarathi Collective and United Earth, Kurzanavesh announced formally. You will be brought before the Galactic Council to answer for violations of the Sentient Rights Accord. Torres, meanwhile, had approached the tank containing the quantum entity. Her scanner indicated the being was in severe distress, its energy patterns increasingly erratic. "We need to release it," she called. "Its vital signs are failing." "No!" Carrick protested, as Marcus secured his hands behind his back. "That specimen is the property of the Drakari Empire. Years of research will be lost." "It's a sentient being," Marcus retorted, disgusted. "Not property. Not a specimen. A living, thinking entity you've been torturing." Kurzanavesh examined the tank controls, his scientific background allowing him to quickly understand their function. "I can initiate a controlled release," he said after a moment. "But we'll need to evacuate the laboratory immediately afterward. Quantum entities in distress can generate significant energy discharges." "Do it," Marcus decided. "Torres, contact the other teams. Tell them we have Carrick and are proceeding to the extraction point." As Torres relayed the message, Kurzanavesh operated the tank controls. The amber fluid began to drain, and the containment field flickered and died. The quantum entity within pulsed brightly, its particles swirling faster as it sensed its imminent freedom. "We should go," Kurzanavesh urged, backing away from the tank. "Now!" They retreated toward the exit, dragging Carrick with them. The scientist continued to protest, alternating between threats and pleas. But they ignored him. As they reached the door, the tank finally emptied completely. The quantum entity hovered in midair for a moment, its luminescence spreading outward in waves of increasingly intense light. Then it exploded into action, racing around the laboratory at incredible speed, passing through solid objects as if they didn't exist. Equipment shorted out, displays cracked, and the room's lighting fluctuated wildly. "Run!" Marcus shouted unnecessarily, as they were already sprinting down the corridor, Carrick stumbling between them. Behind them, the laboratory erupted in a cascade of energy discharges as the freed entity expressed its rage or pain, or both. The blast doors sealed automatically, containing the destruction, but the shockwave still knocked them off their feet. "Is it following us?" Torres asked as they scrambled up. "I don't think so," Kurzanavesh replied, glancing back. "Quantum entities aren't inherently aggressive. It's likely seeking a way out of the ship to return to whatever dimensional space it naturally inhabits." They hurried toward the extraction point, encountering surprisingly little resistance along the way. Most of the ship's crew seemed to be responding to the multiple security breaches caused by the 3 infiltration teams, creating a convenient distraction. At the maintenance airlock, they found the other teams already waiting, their own missions apparently successful. "Database copied," Lieutenant Commander Chen reported briskly. "We have everything: research protocols, subject profiles, even personal logs from the scientists." "Surveillance devices placed," added Operative Torsek. "We'll have eyes and ears throughout the ship for at least a month." Commander Kurvesh's eyes widened at the sight of their prisoner. Dr. Carrick himself, an unexpected bonus. "He was conducting experiments on a quantum entity," Marcus explained. "We freed it, but couldn't extract any other test subjects. They've been moved to another facility." "We know," Chen nodded. "The database contained transfer orders. We have the coordinates of the new research station." "Then this mission is just the beginning," Kurzanavesh said, his tone both weary and determined. "Let's get out of here first," Commander Kurvesh suggested, gesturing toward the airlock. "Discussions of future operations can wait until we're safely away." One by one, they returned to the captured shuttle, Carrick secured and sedated to prevent him from alerting his people. As they undocked from the cruiser, alarm klaxons finally began to sound throughout the vessel, too late to prevent their escape. The shuttle rendezvoused with the Shadow Dancer at the predetermined coordinates, transferring personnel and their valuable intelligence cargo before the smaller craft was set on an automated course into a nearby star, destroying any evidence of their infiltration method. Aboard the stealth ship, the team gathered in the command center to assess their findings. The data stolen from the Drakari database was already being analyzed, revealing the full scope of their experimentation program. 17 different sentient species, Chen reported, scrolling through the files. Over 300 individual test subjects in the past cycle alone. Experiments ranging from simple stress responses to complete genetic manipulation. And this was just one research vessel. Commander Kirvesh added grimly. According to these records, there are at least 5 others, plus the new facility they're establishing in the Cygnus sector. Marcus studied the holographic display of the galaxy, noting the positions of known Drakari research stations. A pattern emerged. They were systematically targeting species that controlled key strategic locations or possessed unique biological capabilities. This isn't just scientific curiosity gone wrong, he realized. It's preparation for conquest. They're developing weapons and countermeasures specific to each species they might face in a galactic war. The Council must act now, Kurzanovesh insisted. With this evidence, plus Carrick's testimony, willing or otherwise, they cannot ignore the threat. They will still debate, Commander Kirvesh said cynically. It is the nature of political bodies to talk while action is needed. Then we don't wait for them, Marcus suggested, an idea forming. We take this evidence public, broadcast it on all frequencies, send it to every news outlet in the galaxy, make it impossible for anyone to claim ignorance. That would violate diplomatic protocols, Chen pointed out. The Council prefers to handle such matters internally, to prevent panic. And while they handle it internally, more beings suffer, Marcus argued. More species are studied for weaknesses. More weapons are developed. We have a responsibility to those still in captivity. The discussion continued as the Shadow Dancer made its way back toward Proxima Station. The team divided on the best approach. Some advocated working within the system, presenting their evidence to the Council as planned. Others, including Marcus and Kurzanovesh, pushed for more direct action. In the end, a compromise was reached. They would give the Council 48 hours to respond to the new evidence. If no decisive action was taken in that time, they would proceed with their own initiative, a joint Sarathi human operation to liberate the remaining test subjects and expose the Drakari program to the galaxy at large. Their arrival at Proxima Station caused an immediate sensation. The sight of Dr. Carrick being escorted in restraints to the Council chamber sent shockwaves through the diplomatic community. Representatives from various worlds gathered to witness this unprecedented development, and the Council convened an emergency session to hear the new evidence. This time, there could be no denial. The database records, the surveillance footage, the testimony of the infiltration team, and the physical presence of the program's chief scientist all painted an irrefutable picture of systematic atrocities. Even Ambassador Sokrath could not maintain his previous composure, his arguments growing increasingly desperate as the evidence mounted. The Council deliberated for just 6 hours before reaching a unanimous decision, the first such consensus in over a decade. The Drakari Empire was formally censured, sanctions were imposed, and a coalition fleet was authorized to locate and liberate any remaining detention facilities. In the aftermath, Marcus found himself standing on an observation deck with Kurzanovesh, watching as ships from a dozen different worlds assembled for the liberation mission. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when they first threw us in that arena?" Marcus asked. "Never," the Sarathi admitted. "I had lost hope of rescue, let alone justice. I expected to die there, another nameless subject in their experiments. And now we're leading a multi-species task force to free the others." Marcus marveled. "Life takes strange turns." The Drakari made a critical error. Kurzanovesh observed. In their arrogance, they believed that by studying us as separate specimens, They could understand and control us, but they never considered what might happen if their specimens worked together. Their fundamental flaw, Marcus agreed. They see the universe as a hierarchy, with themselves at the top. They can't comprehend a reality based on partnership and mutual respect. Admiral Reyes joined them, now wearing the insignia of Task Force Commander. The fleet will depart in 6 hours, she informed them. Our first target is the new research facility in the Cygnus sector. Intelligence suggests at least 80 test subjects are being held there. We'll be ready, Marcus assured her. He had accepted a temporary commission as a tactical advisor, his unique experience making him invaluable to the operation. What happens after? Kurzanovic asked. When all the captives are freed, all the facilities shut down? That's the bigger challenge, Reyes acknowledged. Changing the Drakari worldview, helping them find a place in a galactic community based on cooperation rather than domination. It may take generations. But it begins with this, Marcus said, gesturing to the assembled fleet. Showing them that different species working together are stronger than any empire built on fear and control. As the three of them stood watching the preparations, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a simple cargo pilot to a key figure in what might become a turning point in galactic history. All because he and a being the Drakari had considered a mindless predator, had chosen cooperation over conflict. They locked a human in with a killer predator, he murmured, and everything went wrong, for them. Kurzanovic made the trilling sound of Sarathi laughter. Perhaps that should be the title of the historical record of these events. It has a certain ring to it, Marcus agreed with a smile. Together, they turned from the observation window and walked toward the briefing room where the final mission plans awaited. Two unlikely allies who had forged a friendship in the crucible of captivity, now leading others toward a future where such cruelty would no longer be tolerated. A human and a predator, changing the galaxy one rescue at a time.